Well, with the white South African standing right next to him, Donald Trump signs another executive order. This white South African, of course, being none other than Elon Musk, the omnipresent president, according to some. Well, guess what? This executive order comes as a surprise. We thought Donald Trump stopped accepting refugees into the United States. To all of our surprise, the executive orders welcomes refugees that happen to be fake white refugees from South Africa, under the pretext that the economically advantaged Afrikaners from South Africa are being persecuted. So that will be the only subject we will discuss today, because it would appear that white South African in South Africa who have been leading the country for a long time, who obviously have the advantage economically, are now impacting the politics, not only in that country, but also in the United States, and how the United States in return affects that country. Because one thing I didn't mention with that executive order is that not only does it welcome refugees here, the fake white refugees, but it also cuts funding that were designed to go to South Africa. So there you have it. That's our only topic for today. Buckle our seatbelts. Let's dive in and let's get straight into it. AfriKili family and Global Pack Nation, welcome to another edition of the Global Pack Show. This is your host, Tony Mfumu Simba. As always, it is a great pleasure for me to come here in front of you for our now it's been over 3 weeks, so I guess it's not that new anymore, but this live format, we're almost a month into it. So thank you very much for all of you who are logging in or tuning in, watching this. Particular thank you to all of you who have decided to join our community by subscribing. Thank you very much. We really cannot grow without you. And to all of you out there who have not done so, let me just take a time to please ask you to help this community grow by clicking that subscribe button. It only takes you about a second. But guess what? By doing that, not only are you helping this community grow, which we have no doubt that in 2025 we will grow and achieve great outcomes, but you also become part of the conversation on issues that are affecting the Global Pack. Either you yourself are a member of the Global Pack, the Global Pan-African Community, or a part of Global Pan-African Coalition, or you're just somebody who are interested in those in topics affecting that community. So please take the time to subscribe, but also remember to go on our website, www.afrikili.com. Enter your email address so that you can get the latest editions of our newsletter. All right, so there you have it. All right, let's jump straight into it. The issues affecting South Africa. South Africa being a very significant country in the Global Pack, generally speaking. So just very quickly, you might wonder, why are we taking the time to speak about South Africa, right? Just a few things to help you situate the importance of the country. Obviously, most people will mention Nelson Mandela, which I think might be the most popular ambassador or export of South Africa, across the world. Such a prominent leader and figure who, as you know, spent 27 years in jail because he was fighting the apartheid, which is a word in Afrikaner, meaning separateness. So it was the system of segregation in South Africa, and he became the first black president of that country. But beyond that, just understand that, South Africa has a pretty big economy. It is the largest economy today in the African continent. It was fluctuating for a while between Nigeria and South Africa, but South Africa is the largest economy today, with a projected GDP of about just over $400 billion, right? Somewhere about $418 billion. But when you look at the PPP, so that's the purchasing power parity, it's actually much larger, right? It's about 1.03, so just over $1 trillion. So a very significant country, economically speaking. In terms of the population, has about 62 million people. and it's one of the founding countries of the BRICS. There's a while I remember Donald Trump during the campaign ranting against the BRICS, talking about how the BRICS were also part of the enemy. Well, BRICS, B-R-I-C-K, no, B-R-I-C-S, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So those 5 countries, which actually represent about 40% of the global GDP output, formed a bloc because there was this sentiment that, okay, why should we always have the G7 countries that are leading essentially policies around the world when in fact you have all these powerful countries that are just as significant. So they formed that BRICS bloc, and South Africa is part of the BRICS. So there was just a quick note in terms of the BRIC I mentioned. It's wanted to rival the G7. Okay, so you might hear the G7, known as the G7 groups, represent some of the most powerful countries in the world. So it's a group of 7 countries. On the North America side, you have the United States of America and Canada. On the European side, on the Asian side, you have Japan. So that's 3. And then in Europe, you have 4 countries, if I recall correctly. So you have Italy, you have France, you have Germany, and the 4th one being the UK. So those are the 7 countries that are part of the G7. So when you hear Global 7, G7. All right, so South Africa is really an important country. About 40% of the world population and 32% of the world GDP output. I mentioned 40% of GDP, but it's actually 32%. All right, enough with the numbers. So here we have this country, and then we have on one side Donald Trump coming and saying, you know what? I will sign an executive order so that we stop our aid that is going to South Africa on one end, but also we will now welcome white refugees. I call them fake refugees because you will see they're not really refugees per se. Actually, that's a perversion of the word refugee, if you ask me. But nevertheless, he said that, oh, white South Africans, the minority in South Africa are being persecuted. It's egregious because their lands are being taken over without compensation. So that's oppression. That's crime against all the white people in South Africa. And therefore, those white people will be welcome. Even though most Afrikaners, which are the white descendant of the Dutch colonizers, and predominantly, but you also have others in South Africa. So it's a descendant of those colonizers, right? And Afrikaner, there's a language called Afrikaner, which is spoken, I think, somewhere around 10% of the population or less. But most of them have no interest in even coming to the United States. But the interesting thing here is that clearly these policies were whispered in Donald Trump's ear by what's been called the PayPal mafia. Okay, so these are essentially South African individuals that were all connected through PayPal and are now obviously prominent part of the Trump administration, with Elon Musk being the one we see the most. And they're clearly the ones that are whispering those policies into Trump's ear, because I mean, believe me, Donald Trump has no idea of what's happening in Africa. I mean, the guy I'm pretty sure has zero interest on the African continent. The most notable thing that he said about Africa during his previous administration, remember when he said Africa, it's all composed of shithole countries. That was Donald Trump saying that. So I'm sure if you ask him, some countries has no idea how to even locate those on the map. So I know these policies are the result of members of that PayPal mafia. So if you're just wondering, who are these people of the PayPal mafia? There's an interesting article in The Guardian, the newspaper. You can check it online. So that newspaper looked at the members of the PayPal mafia who are in Donald Trump's administration. So there's 4 of them that are prominent. You have Elon Musk. Obviously, he's one of the co-founders of PayPal, right? Who was born in South Africa. Some people might ignore that. He was born in South Africa. All right. He was educated in South Africa until he was 18 years old when he went to Canada to study. But South African Elon Musk. You also have Peter Thiel. So Peter Thiel, he was also a co-founder of PayPal with Elon. Is not a co-founder of PayPal. So Peter Thiel was actually not born in South Africa. He was born in Germany, but then moved to South Africa as a kid because his dad was a mining engineer. And then from South Africa, also relocated to what was called Southwest, the German Southwest Africa, right? So, which is now Namibia. And all these folks are billionaires, by the way, obviously through their tech, endeavors, PayPal, and so on. But it'll be interesting to know that, Peter Thiel, the country in which he relocated to in Namibia, the school he went to was a school that actually was a neo-Nazi school. It's a school where people were still greeting themselves with a Heil Hitler sign, and they were still celebrating Hitler's birthday for the longest. I mean, you should check out that article online to The Guardian. Just, go ahead and type in PayPal Mafia Donald Trump administration, and you'll see that article. So that's pretty fascinating. I'm clearly not saying that Peter Thiel is a neo-Nazi. Absolutely not. He's spoken clearly against that. But just understand the school he went through was a neo-Nazi school in Namibia, which, by the way, it's fascinating when, now we have South Africans complaining. Some are even using the word genocide against white people. Just look through Elon Musk's Twitter feed or X feed. People saying genocide of white South African. Well, this in Namibia, where Peter Thiel was, there was an actual genocide against the black people. Germany came out and recognized it. There was a real genocide that occurred. Between 50 to 65,000 Namibians were killed. People of a tribe called the Herero, and also the other tribe called the Nama. So, paradox, there was an actual genocide there. So if you want to talk about genocide, just go next door, because there's clearly no genocide against white people in South Africa. But next door, Namibia, there was a genocide by Europeans, Germans, against the locals. But anyway, so I mentioned Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. You also have a third member of the PayPal Mafia who's within the Trump administration, and this is David Sacks. David Sacks, another billionaire. So now he was born in Cape Town in South Africa, but then he relocated to Tennessee as a young man. So he ended up growing up in the United States and is involved with crypto-related matters within Donald Trump's circle. But he's also one of the leading fundraisers for Donald Trump. And then finally, you have Roloff Botha. Okay, Roloff Botha, who's a grandson of the last foreign minister of the apartheid system or government in South Africa. So his dad, this guy's dad, who used to be called Pik Botha, or his grandfather, Pik Botha, was the last foreign minister of the apartheid regime in South Africa. So all these folks from the PayPal Mafia who were either born in South Africa, who either lived in South Africa at some point, are all connected to apartheid in a way, are the ones that are dictating these South African policies in the Donald Trump circle. Just another quick note about Elon Musk. I really wanted to go very quickly on this show today. We don't have a lot of time, 14 minutes. Okay, so I'll be just going rapidly, and then maybe we can touch upon this topic at a later time. Well, Elon Musk's dad was against Nazism, against apartheid. He is a politician. But on his mom's side, were of Canadian origin, because his mom was born in South Africa and everything, but his mom's parents, so Elon Musk's maternal grandparents, relocated from Canada to South Africa, were Canadian who relocated to South Africa. I understand that in Canada, they were part of a political movement that used to be called the Technocracy Incorporated, which essentially became a fascist movement that wanted to get rid of democracy in Canada and the United States of America. When that party was banned during the Second World War, then Elon Musk's grandparents, as a result, fled from Canada and decided to relocate to South Africa, because his father, his maternal grandfather, actually, who was a pilot, just liked the apartheid system, and so he was a staunch racist, right? A staunch apartheid person. So that's interesting to know that the guy who's now leading the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency within Donald Trump circle, who's a member of the PayPal mafia, was connected somehow to the apartheid in that way. Again, I am not saying that Elon Musk is a racist. I'm not saying that he is a proponent of apartheid, which I don't believe he is, quite frankly. One, he was supporting the Democrats for so long, and if that was an issue, I think he would have come up for the longest. It is only recently that he decided to switch allegiances from the Democrat to the Republican. He was supporting Obama. He was a prominent Democrat for the longest. So he's not somebody that I think is a racist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think he's an apartheid sympathizer. Neither do Peter Thiel and those others. Nevertheless, I think that they're misguided in the way they're interpreting the event that are unfolding in South Africa, and I will explain myself. The thing that's bringing all this is essentially a land issue in South Africa. All right, just to give you a quick synopsis, what is happening in South Africa is that the white minority, the Afrikaners, about 7% of the population in South Africa, so it's the minority. They own about almost 80%, right? They say about 72% of private farmland. Let me say that again. It's 7% minority, white minority, owns over 70% of the farmland. So you have that huge prejudice that has been ongoing for a long time in South Africa. And this has happened for the longest. You had something like the Land Act in the early 1900s that essentially pushed a lot of the black people out and prevented black people from owning land, which is the result of what we're seeing today. So the current makeup of the land ownership is a disparity that was not created naturally, but it was created by policies. All right, that is a massive problem in South Africa, and so now the black majority, who obviously that's their land, that's where they're from the longest, before the colonizers came in the 1600s and so on. And the Afrikaners, you had many conflicts. On a side note, if you want to look at the history of how you had the Dutch colonizers who came through to South Africa as a result of first there was an East India route. But again, in history, when Europe was trying to find a route to to India for spices, so they came through the Cape of Good Hope. On the southernmost tip of Africa. If you look at the map of Africa, on the southernmost tip you have Cape Town, so the Cape of Good Hope. That was a turning point towards going all the way into the Indian Ocean and so on. So the Portuguese first went through that route. You had locals that were there. You had a Zulu kingdom and so on. But anyways, the Portuguese say that they discovered it, as Europeans like to claim discoveries of land that already existed. They went through it, and then the Dutch came later, but it ended up being initially a stopping point. But then you had the trekkers, right, who started trekking inland into Africa and then started setting settlement across southern Africa. So that's essentially how it started. But anyway, so this minority owns the land. The black people have been, ever since the dismantling of apartheid, which is, again, a system of segregation that was very, very racist in that country. Very, very racist. But once that system was dismantled, black people have been claiming to own land. But policies were not allowing them to essentially become landowners. So there's been attempts, it's been going through government, but it's been taking too long. And suddenly, after many, many years, Cyril Ramaphosa, the current president of South Africa, decided to sign a law now that says that the government will be able to take part of the land. The major change here is that the government has been doing it, but it's been very slow, but they've been paying. There's been a policy that says willing buyer, willing seller. So the farmer has to be willing to sell the land, and then the government will pay them. So that's been the system. But now this law say it is possible the government might just go ahead and start taking some of the land to correct some of those historical injustices. Again, 7% of the population owning 72% of the land. I mean, I don't know under which environment is that acceptable. So that is the issue. Correcting historical injustices. I mentioned the Native Land Act, which was signed in 1913, keeping Black people away from owning land and so on and so forth. So that is what happened. So this is a correction of historical injustices, policies that will gradually start to try to correct the wrongs. These are clear wrongs. All right. Disparities that were created by keeping Black people away from owning land. So you have an unfair advantage that was created by policies. You need policies to correct that unfair advantage. I don't see how else you can go about doing it. So anyway, so Trump comes with his executive order, and he has all his people in his ear. You have Elon Musk saying these policies are clearly racist and so on and so forth. So to me here, I'm making a parallel with the conversation we've been having in the United States about the anti-DEI. It's really the same type of theme where, DEI designed to address the racial inequality, diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI has a broader scope. We have LGBTQ issues, we have gender issues, and so on, but you also have racial issues. So here I'm talking about the racial argument, where you have massive disparities in the United States. You have clearly unfair advantages that were created as a result of oppressive policies. So we have structural issues. And so when you have DEI measures that are trying to address some of those structural issues, now you have people clamoring and saying, no, it is reverse racism. It's oppression against white people. When you still have groups of people still in power, still dominating entire industries and segments, but clamoring that there is injustice against white people. When in fact, it's not that there's injustice, it's about correcting injustices against Black people that are created, again, by policies. Because proponent of all these anti-DEI measures, or now people clamoring in South Africa, talking about, meritocracy and so on and so forth. Well, it is not by merit that the advantage was created, not by merit alone. It is not by some kind of an inherent superiority, even though you have idiotic white supremacists who somehow believe that their white skin gives them some kind of super advantage. No, it is not by merit that those advantages were created. It is by policies. And so you cannot say that you have a system that has, for the longest, denied opportunity to large segment of the population. In South Africa, here we have the majority. And then, you try to come and correct that through a different set of policies, and then people trying to cry to racism. And it might be interesting. You might be interested in knowing that there's actually a group, I think, behind all this advocacy. There's a group that has been pushing this narrative of a possible white genocide of white people in South Africa. It's a group called AfriForum. Okay, so AfriForum. It's essentially a group that was that was created in 2006 to advance the interest of Afrikaners. Remember, Afrikaners are the white descendants of Dutch colonizers. They're the ones who've been advancing this forum. Even the previous Trump administrations have been traveling the United States, meeting with senators, meeting with John Bolton back then. So they're the one advancing this, that there is racism, there is murders against white people, there is persecution of white people, of the 7% minority that are owning 72% of the land. There's a persecution of them. The land, anyways, it's sometimes it's difficult to keep my calm when I start thinking about the perversion that exists in these narratives, right? It is fascinating where you have clearly, again, unfair advantages that we're creating by oppressing entire people, right? And even if you might say, I'm not the one who directly created those systems, but you are benefiting from those systems at large when you take in a macro sense. And so how do you balance the scales without creating policies that address that? Creating policies that guarantee equal opportunity, because clearly there's no equal opportunity from the get-go. There's no clear opportunity. And in a country like South Africa, it's funny that somebody like Steve Bannon, now he was, obviously there was infight between Steve Bannon, Elon Musk and so on. But it was interesting when Steve Bannon was criticizing Elon Musk, he was saying that white South Africans are the most racist people in the world. He was telling Elon Musk, go back to South Africa. I mean, seeing those two conflicting, was funny in a sense. But anyways, so you need policies to correct some of those injustices. Without policies, it's just not possible. All right. And you have somebody like Donald Trump now coming in and really it's a subversion of the whole refugee word and system. Naming those white Afrikaners, calling them refugees, is an insult to refugees across the world. All right? Refugees, people who are persecuted, fleeing countries where their lives is at stake. There's no systematic attack against white people in South Africa. There's none. So it's a not only is it a blatant misrepresentation of the truth, a lie, in other words, not only is it a massive lie, but it is also, again, a massive insult to refugees around the world, people that are truly suffering. And what image does that even portray? Where Donald Trump say, okay, we will pause the entire asylum system. No more refugees of all the people coming from Latin America and so on, trying to get into our country. We will pause the whole system because our country is being invaded. But then when it comes to these white folks from South Africa, you're saying, okay, we'll reopen the system, not for everybody, but then just for them. And we will name them refugees, even though they are fake refugees. So that is really pathetic, if you ask me. But this also, brings up the point that I think in every show, every live discussion, I constantly bring up the point of political participation as an essential pillar in the global pack. Okay, if we really want our voices to carry more weight, political organization is needed. Strong coalitions being built across the global pack world, which is why that is an essential pillar of our show. But with political organization comes economic advancements as well. All right. So without resources, you cannot really organize yourself politically and you cannot advance the causes. All right. Anyways, I will end up here for today, exactly 29 minutes. Hey, looks like I'm getting better at keeping the shows in 30-minute talks. It's a work in progress, but we are getting there. All right, folks. So to end, as I always like ending with a quote, as you now know, we've been doing this for a while now. So today's quote will come from Nelson Madiba Mandela. Since we're talking about South Africa, I thought we might as well bring a quote from Nelson Mandela from South Africa. So here it is. So the quote from Nelson Madiba Mandela says, "There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." I love this quote. There's no passion to be found in playing small, settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. Global Pack Nation, really, this speaks directly to us, right? There's really no passion to be found in playing small. We should not be playing small ball. We need to be playing big ball, large ball, right? We need to strive to have the life that we know we're capable of. I know individually, many of us are thriving, obviously, because being black does not mean that you're less capable than others. No, many of us are thriving. We're fighters. Tenacity is part of who we are. But it is also important to do it as a group within coalitions. And so I invite you to join the Global Pack community, the AfriKili community. Click the subscribe button. Help this community grow. Be part of the conversation. And if this is not your cup of tea, join another one, another platform, another movement that will allow you to explore different ways to be involved. Or on that note, this is where I will end for today. As always, remember, we are beautiful people. We are capable people. We are creative and imaginative people. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And more importantly, we are the Global Pack. So until next time, may peace be with you. Asante sana, which means thank you very much in Swahili. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And see you next time. Thank you very much.